is it then?
I don't know any more than you do.
Earlier.
You know, but here's the thing. Here's the thing you have to do.
Something good you said earlier, Sojourner, which would answer this question, which was when you made the point about the food-like properties of the DNA and protein synthesis system. If could specify that, point out that the other things that we've observed with kind of code-like properties would be, man-made creations for design.
I don't know what that was about. We're just trying to understand what you mean by complexity. It's totally
I understood
obscure.
what he was saying, but I can't.
It's irrelevant. Just ignore it. So, what does complexity mean? Let's try again. What's the metric that makes one arrangement of nucleotides more complex than another?
I have no idea.
It's not number of nucleotides. It's not number of nucleotides. Right?
I have no idea.
You do have an idea. You're saying it's not number of nucleotides.
If you read Bill Dembski, you would have some idea.
I actually haven't read anything by William Dembski.
Well, what does Myers say? Go take the book off your shelf and look
Myers does not define complexity. He explains what complexity is.
Go ahead, read us what he says.
Well, if you want to hold on, I can try to pull it up.
Go take the book off your shelf and read us what he says.
I actually have the digital copy right here.
Okay, fine.
Man,
Jack,
man, he couldn't even say in virtue of the number of parts that make up the system or whatever.
Jack, did you understand what I was saying with like complexity having to do with difficulty in modeling a system?
I think so. The idea, right, is that with a random number, you have to actually reproduce every element, right? Whereas if there's like a pattern, you can just use a small number of numbers in a formula to model the whole number. So even though it's like 1,000 digits long, right? If there's like a pattern that only involves 4 digits repeating, right? You're only going to need something like, well, you're just going to need those 4 digits, the order that they're in, and the length of the
word.
Well, if it's a word.
Well,
but whatever.
Or the string numbers. Sorry.
The length of the string. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, you just need the length of the string to know how many times it repeats, right? And you can then have the basis to reproduce the whole number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I just it's like
But
I think,
isn't he denying that that's what it means?
I'm not sure. I think
Here's something interesting. Now, I went to Myers' book and I typed in complexity, and the first thing I come up with is a usage of the word complexity but that's the first place complexity exists. Is it's being utilized to explain something. But that's the first place that the word comes up. In other words, there is no definition that precedes that usage. So Myers apparently assumes that we know what complexity is, I guess intuitively, as you were saying. But there is no definition of complexity. I've been through Myers' book a couple times. I do not remember where he specifically defines complexity, so that if you're debating the issue and somebody asks you for a specific definition, a rigorous... Shut up. Oh, come on, hey, no.
Shut up. Look, here's the problem, okay? Do you think the sun is complex?
Guys, I'm done here. Seriously.
Okay, go fuck off then.
Yeah.
He's running away. He's running away.
Oh yeah.
Why would you do that? Like when Jack tells you to shut up, it's for a good reason. Just shut up and
Yes,
listen.
because I don't
You'll
want to
learn
listen
something.
to you blather on about nonsense. Because, see, the problem is, let's say you say the sun is not complex, right?
You asked me.
And somebody
You
else says
asked
it
me
is,
to go
right?
to Meyer's book. Wait.
Yeah,
Just
you
wait.
couldn't find a definition. So
Just
now
wait.
I'm trying to explain to you what the problem is, right? If somebody says the sun is complex, right, and somebody else says, no, it's simple, I just don't understand how we're supposed to adjudicate that.
Jack, let me ask
So
you a
you're
question.
using a
Hold a
totally
second.
vague concept.
Jack, let me ask you a question. I have a YouTube channel. Would you be willing to come onto my channel and discuss this? No language, can't use any language. I don't allow that. A few words I can edit out, but I don't want to go through, our entire discussion and be bleeping out things. But would you be willing to do that?
Maybe, but what would be the point?
Because I think we could have a more profitable discussion.
Why?
I just do. The question is, would you be willing to do that?
Maybe,
You
maybe.
can't provide a reason? Wait, you can't provide a reason for why you think it would be better?
Content. He wants
Like, make
content
up
for
something.
his
Because
channel.
I think we would be able to, in that context, we would be able to treat each other with more respect and
Oh,
listen
you
to
don't
what
know
the
Jack,
other
bro.
listen to
Oh,
what
this
the
dude
other is
doesn't know
saying.
Jack. He doesn't know Jack, fellas.
See, I don't understand what the disrespect thing has to do with it, right? Because thing is, it's true that I've been disrespectful, right? And there have been points where I haven't been disrespectful. See, the problem is when I haven't been disrespectful, it's been no better, right?
Okay,
You've been just as unable to provide what you're being asked for when I'm being respectful as when I'm being disrespectful, right? And so I don't see why that has anything to do with it.
okay.
When we were
Because
totally respectful, you still pulled stuff out of your ass,
yeah,
right?
see, if you
And
come
gave
on my
inadequate
channel,
answers.
if you come on my channel, right, and and we have this conversation, my listeners can judge for themselves whether whether you're actually asking me legitimate questions.
I think he might just mean he has mods that he's gonna overtalk you, and if you try to talk him, he has mods that are gonna mute you back.
Yeah, but I don't care about that. I can totally abide by not over talking, right? The question is, what would be the point of doing it?
Because, in other words, when you said define complexity, and I couldn't do it, and I said, well, how about you? Can you define complexity? And you said you couldn't do it. I want my listeners to hear that.
Why would
What
I
does
care
it
about
matter?
what your listeners
Why does it matter to your argument whether he can define complexity or not?
Because if he can't do it, then he shouldn't expect me to be able to do it. If it's
He's
something,
not the one making an argument.
if it's something
Did you?
that
I got here late, but did you give an argument where complexity was in one of the premises?
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
Well,
Look,
what the
At least he
fuck?
tried
What
to.
does what Jack thinks about complexity have to do with your argument?
Because Jack's asking me to define complexity.
Yeah, is it a problem to ask somebody? Is it a problem to ask somebody to define one of the words in their premises?
No, and I asked him to define complexity.
Then answer it. Then what does it mean?
But he can't answer it either. So
it's not his job. It's your argument.
But if he can't, if what he's asking me to do is impossible, then why is he asking me to do it?
Wait, if you don't know what complexity means, then I don't know how you're going to infer. Like, what was the conclusion? There's an intelligent designer or something. I assume. How are you going to infer that if you don't even know what it fucking means?
I did define complexity, but he wasn't.
Well, sir, you know what?
I
think simplicity. I don't know what simplicity means, but I think simplicity means that there's not an intelligent designer, and there's simplicity. Therefore, there's no intelligent designer. Now, do you know what simplicity means? Do you know what it means? Oh, you don't know what it means? Then I win the argument.
Well, things started with one simple question. I asked him why I should believe what the Bible says, and he went into this whole thing about the designer, and this is what we ended up with.
Well, that seems totally nuts, right? Because, like, let's say there was a good design argument. Let's say Meyer had a good design argument, right? What would that allow us to conclude, right? That DNA was designed by an agent, that life, biological life on Earth was designed by an agent. How do you get from there to the Bible? I don't get it.
Well,
Fuck.
you asked. See, the way I do it is first I establish whether God exists, and if
How
we
do
can
you establish that?
well, by the design argument,
No, the design argument only establishes that
Okay.
life
well
was designed. That doesn't show
but
that there's a
that's
God.
that's one way. That's one way I do it.
Wait a
It
minute. It
raises the
doesn't show
probability
the
of there being a God, Jack, of course.
conclusion of the argument is not that there's a God. It's that DNA or terrestrial life is designed, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't give you a God. How do you get
It's-
from that to a God?
It gives you an
It
intelligent
raises the
designer.
probability, though, right?
Yeah, it gives you an intelligent designer. That's not a God, right? Human beings are intelligent designers, right? They're not gods.
Yeah,
right?
but it
So
but it
that
gives
just
you
gets you to a designer.
but it gives you a designer who is apparently responsible for the universe.
So
No. Design argument is not an argument that the universe was designed, right? The argument that you were giving was an argument that life or DNA was designed. That doesn't take you to the creator of a universe. You need another argument for that.
So yeah, but you're not gonna even grant that the DNA was designed. So,
I'm prepared to grant it. How does that get you to a God?
Yo, so Turner, would you say that it raises the probability of there being a God or not?
Wait,
what was
that's just
I
going to
didn't-
take us off track. So let's grant, for the sake of argument, right, that there's like a good argument, an ID argument, which is that from the facts of DNA or terrestrial life, we can infer that those things were designed by an agent, right? How do you get from that to a God? And not just a God, but the God of the Bible.
the way you get to it, that there's a God, is all the opposition that atheists present against the idea of design. They wouldn't be mounting that opposition if they didn't themselves understand that if there's
that's
a
not the
designer.
question.
No, I think that's
Question is, show me the inference from there being an agent that designed terrestrial life to there being a God. What's the inference?
there's an intelligent designer.
Yeah. The question is, what's the argument, right? That intelligent designer is the God of the Bible.
Okay, so the God, all right, so the God of the Bible. All right, I would argue that on the basis of the historical, the evidence from history for the resurrection of Christ.
Wait, I don't see how a resurrection. Let's say that Jesus rose from the dead. How does that get you to the idea that there was a God?
Well, because Jesus said there was a God, he said he came to reveal God, and he said he himself was God. And then if he rose from the dead 3 days later, that would vindicate his claims to him being God and coming to reveal the Father. Now, that would vindicate it for me. It might not for you, and I understand that.
But
Well,
what if I say
I
that
mean-
Jesus was resurrected by the same beings who designed life, aliens, bro?
Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
fine. I mean, we can talk about aliens, but I think Francis Crick first suggested that, and he caught all kinds of hell for that. He said, you know what, I wish I never even said that. And then
How
Richard
about just
Dawkins,
telling us what's wrong with the argument, or
well,
with the claim, rather?
what,
So
that
let's say there's these super powerful aliens that could design human beings or design all the biological life we see on Earth, design the DNA molecule, right? And could also raise Jesus from the dead, right? What's the argument that that's not a better explanation
okay, if these
than that God
aliens,
did it?
okay, if these aliens were immaterial, I would say okay. But if they're material, then they would need an explanation, and so they wouldn't suffice.
Why is it that
But
material
that's
things
irrelevant.
need explanations and not immaterial things?
Because, well, immaterial, timeless, spaceless. See, if they exist in time, then they would imply an infinite regress.
But Jack didn't ask you that question. Jack asked you what makes you think that the God explanation is more likely to be true than the alien explanation, right? And if you're appealing to an explanation for aliens,
I said
you're
if
not
the
addressing the issue.
aliens were spaceless and timeless and immaterial, then the aliens could function as an explanation.
I don't understand this. If you're saying that's as good as an explanation, right? Then I don't understand why you think it's God.
I would because
Why
I
you
would
think
say,
it's the God of the Bible.
I would say that those aliens are God.
So if Jesus says
It's good enough for me. It's good enough for me.
So you're saying that it doesn't matter whether Jesus was mistaken about whether he was God or not?
No, Jesus.
Christianity
no, I'm not saying
is
Jesus.
true.
No, why would you think that that's what I'm thinking?
You said Jesus is God, right?
That's what
And
he
we
said.
proposed, yeah. So we proposed. Well, what if it was just aliens that raised Jesus from the dead, and Jesus was not God?
Yeah, and I'm saying if those aliens were spaceless and timeless and immaterial, then
Like
those
when
aliens
Jesus
Would
said
could
his
function.
Christianity
kingdom,
be
when
true?
Jesus said that his kingdom was not of this world, they misinterpreted him. He was talking
Wait,
about another
I just
planet.
trying to understand.
Jack is
Would
answering the
Christianity
question.
be true if
Yes.
Jesus
Yeah.
was mistaken?
No, Jesus.
So
No. That
Jesus
would.
said he was God, right? And I'm
Yeah.
saying the alternative hypothesis is Jesus is not God, but some aliens raised Jesus from the dead, right?
I
Would
would not.
Christianity
I would
be
not.
true?
I would say that's a false dichotomy.
I don't understand.
But
I would.
honestly,
You're
how
saying.
does
He's
You're
not.
saying.
like
Wait.
He's
Wait.
not
Wait.
positing
wait
it as
wait
a dichotomy.
hang on a second,
Let me answer
Bruno.
Jack,
Everything
please.
you've said thus far, how does that raise the probability of the God explanation over the alien one?
Wait.
No,
I'm
but
going to
he's
answer.
saying
I'm
the
going to answer.
alien explanation is Christianity. But that makes no sense,
No, I mean we're talking
right?
about physical agents from another planet, not
Well, he
like
was saying it would be
Oh,
okay if they were immaterial.
Yeah, but
immaterial, spaceless, and timeless.
so then he's not arguing for a God. Then he's just arguing for like some sort of like thing, just like us,
aliens.
more intelligent. Like what the fuck?
Space
Like
pixie.
the
That
whole point. The
then
whole point that
the
the
Bible would
argument is
be
supposed to be
false.
presenting is that it's supposed to be an argument for like Christianity or like God, right? But you're just appealing to some like carbon-based life that's like more intelligent that
No, I'm
created
not.
everything.
No, Jack knows that that's not what I'm saying. Right, Jack?
Yeah,
Well,
but
what are you saying? You said this shit.
but see, I still don't understand, right? You're saying that Jesus said he was God, and that's reason to think that he was God, right? But we offered an alternative hypothesis, right? That aliens raised Jesus from the dead, right? And
Right.
those aliens are distinct beings from Jesus, right? Now, if that hypothesis
No.
were true,
No, I wouldn't say they were distinct beings.
why not?
Well, then they would falsify Christianity if they were distinct beings.
Well, the question is, in virtue of what is that explanation less justified than that Jesus is the one who did it?
Jesus is the one who did what?
Raised Jesus from the dead.
Well, actually, Jesus did say he would raise himself from the dead.
I understand that, but I'm asking you what justifies the belief that it was not done by an alternative agent.
It was done by himself, his Father, and the Spirit.
Yeah,
Jesus.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you what justifies the belief that it was not done by another agent. I don't get it.
Well, if he rose from the dead, then I think we can rely on what he said while he was alive.
Why?
And okay, I said. Now, you might not think that
Why?
that's a good reason, Jack. You might not think that that's a good reason to admit what he
I'm asking
taught
you
for 3
why
years.
it's a good reason.
For me, it's a good reason. Because if somebody
why.
rises, if somebody rises from the dead, they've got my attention.
Wait, what?
So
What difference does that make?
If somebody
Or he could have
rises from
advanced
the dead,
technology,
they've
bro.
got my They've got my attention.
I wrote
But
from
like Jack, under his view, right? Paramedics would be like gods to him because they can bring people from different states of death,
Not after
right?
3 days.
Via means like CPR and bullshit like that.
See,
like,
what
what's
I'm
the
not
fun of you
understanding-
talking
Yeah, so
about?
let's just ignore all his actions when he was alive. Let's ignore that
I'm
he
not
was born,
understanding, but those actions are consistent with
the circumstance of his
deceit,
birth,
with
right?
but those actions are consistent with deception, right?
No,
So
no,
they're not consistent.
He was dead. He was dead. The Roman soldiers knew he was dead. He was dead when, if he wasn't dead when they took him off the cross, he was certainly dead when they stuck him in a cold, damp tomb for 3 days.
Yeah, but that's
Atheists are trying to cope so hard.
We're
You're just
talking-
coping.
Dead. The guy was
So wait a
dead
minute.
for 3 days.
How is
he
that
was
not
wrapped,
consistent with
He was
deception?
wrapped in what? 140
How is that
pounds
not
of
consistent with
excuse me,
deception?
Jack, he was wrapped in like 140 pounds of spices.
I'm going to ask the question again.
There was
How is
there
that
was
not
a
consistent?
stone.
Listen to the question. How is that not consistent with deception? Right? If an alien being that was powerful enough to raise Jesus from the dead, right, wanted to deceive people into thinking that
You understand
Jesus,
how hard you're coping right now?
Shut up.
That's
If
even
an
worse.
alien being,
You're making up.
Will somebody shut this fucker up? I'm not interested in
Yeah,
what
he-
he has to
we-
say.
we gotta mute on
who
this
is it
guy.
that's
Shut him
talking?
up! Shut
Yeah,
up! Shut
yeah.
up, this idiot!
I just muted him. I don't know
Well
who
done.
Okay.
unmutes him.
He was
Yeah.
a random
Now
guy,
I'm
Jack. He wasn't
asking
that
you
guy.
what's inconsistent with that being deception. I just don't get it. See, you have to infer all these different properties, right? You have to infer all these different properties.
See, this is why
right?
I want to record.
You have
this
to
stuff.
infer. I'm not interested.
This is why I
I'm
want to
not
record
interested.
this stuff.
Shut
Jack.
up while I'm talking.
Okay, but this
I'm
is
not
why
interested.
I want to record this.
Shut up. Will somebody shut him up while I'm talking?
Shut
So
up.
you have to infer all these. You have to infer all these properties, right? That it's Jesus that's God, that Jesus is triune, that God is triune, that God is incarnate, that God is perfectly good, that God is all-knowing, that God is all-powerful. I just don't see how you get any of that stuff. How do you infer all those properties?
Unmute him so he can answer.
Yeah, I unmuted him.
Some of those things are things that I believe. Other of the things that you mentioned are things that I would argue for empirically.
So some of it you can't justify. Is that what you're saying? You
well,
think it's empirical? You think that which properties are empirical? Is omniscience empirical?
I would say I don't think so. I don't think I could.
Okay, so you don't have any good reason to believe that God is omniscient. Is that right?
Oh no, I have reason to believe he's omniscient, but
how would you
to
argue
prove
for
it? I don't know how.
I'm just asking you for a justification.
Well, if he created the universe and he raised the sun from the dead,
that doesn't show that he's omniscient. That just shows that he knows things that we don't know. I'm asking you, how do you infer that he's omniscient?
well, again.
Again, what's the justification?
The scriptures. The
Because
scriptures
it says
are.
it?
Yes, the scriptures are my ultimate standard.
But the problem is
all
you're just
have-
arguing in a circle.
Yes, yeah. Well,
Back
when
to
it
my
comes to
original
ultimate-
question.
When it comes to
Why
ultimate
should I believe
standards-
what the Bible says?
Yeah,
it
see,
comes-
look.
When it
Look,
comes to ultimate standards,
Look. The problem is we're not interested in a circular argument, right? The guy asked you, why should he believe what's in the scriptures, right? And you're just saying that you start from the scriptures as your ultimate standard. That's not an argument.
He's gonna go the precept
Didn't-
route now.
Oh,
Didn't-
precept. 3, 2, 1.
didn't somebody say that if somebody's talking, you're not allowed to interrupt? That's
We're not
rule?
interested in what you keep doing, right? Is you ramble on with irrelevant nonsense, right? When you're asked a question. So there's no reason why people shouldn't interrupt you.
Oh,
Do you
Well, the other-
understand that? I keep telling you I'm not interested in commentary, right, on the discussion. I'm interested in answers to the questions. And rather than answer the questions, you start saying stuff about how I'd like my listeners to hear this, which is not an answer to the question, which is why I interrupt you. And I keep having to do that. Because every time I tell you I'm not interested in the commentary, right, you just don't get it. I'm only interested in answers to the questions.
Jack, will you come on my show where I can have about 5 guys on my side, and they can mute you, and they can do whatever they want, and they can badger you with
What would be the
questions that you
purpose
can't
of that?
to do what you're doing to me.
How is that analogous?
Because I think
he's saying
what I'm saying is Jack is not going to put himself in the position that I'm putting myself in.
What you're saying is that you want vengeance, man. But what's the Bible say?
No,
he's saying that Jack is equivalent to 5
debaters. Are you willing to do what I'm doing?
Look, vengeance belongs to the Lord.
To do what I'm doing.
All I want you to do is just answer questions rather than give me commentary.
Yeah, questions that you yourself admit you can't answer.
What are you talking about?
Wait,
what's complexity? You said I don't know. I can't. I don't know what complexity.
He's on position.
I'm not using that concept as the service of any argument.
Yeah, he's not, those aren't his positions. Why would he need to address any of that?
And even still,
he wouldn't
It would be like
need
someone. It would be like someone saying that bare particulars exist, right? And then you're like, no, they don't. Like I define, and then you're like, define bare particular, and they're like, see, not even you can define it, and you're like, but I don't believe minds exist, right? Something like that. It's just like so stupid.
Yeah, like
But
aside,
does he even understand the purpose of those questions when people were asking him to define the terms? Do you understand, sir? What the reason for that was?
I defined the term, and my definition wasn't good enough.
Well,
but this is something that you should recognize. That you don't have an understanding of the concept. You just have some intuition that something exhibits this property.
No, my definition was good enough. It just wasn't good enough for you.
What?
See,
aside from the fact.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, aside from the fact, thank you. Aside from the fact that, Jack isn't positing, right, complexity within some type of argument, right? We actually did discuss a workable definition of complexity earlier, right? It's just that when you try to posit one, it ends up being question begging in your argument. And that was the whole problem.
Okay, so let's go with whatever workable definition we came up with at that time.
Well, see, I just don't understand why the sun wouldn't be complex on that definition.
What was the working definition?
It's funny. I was
earlier.
on.
What did you settle it on?
I was on David Smalley's podcast about 2 months ago, and David Smalley was telling me about the time he was talking to Cy Ten Bruggencate. I'm sure you guys are familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
And David Smalley's daughter was listening to Cy one day, and Smalley's daughter said, "You know, Dad, I finally figured out why they call him Cy. Because when you listen to him, you go, and I got to tell you, man, Jack, that's what when I listen to you, that's what I do, man. I'm like, your name should be Cy.
Nobody gives a shit about
Yeah,
this.
nobody gives a fuck about any of that.
Why didn't
You just
anybody
like
mute
to waste people's
Pyramid?
time.
You know that David Smalley guy is just like some voiceover actor from Hollywood.
Get ready for some argument, man.
What is what is that guy relevant?
Jack, have you even brought up the whole how there can't even be evidence for God or an intelligence designer yet? Or are
he
you just
hasn't
been
even given
focused
a
on
definition of complexity he's referring to.
Are you kidding me, dude?
And that was just comebacks.
He's saying that DNA exhibits specified complexity, whatever that is. And because the only things that we know of that exhibit that property are things that we know are designed, there's some kind of will somebody shut him up? That we therefore can inductively infer that DNA is also designed. Right. So we're just trying to understand what he means by specified complexity.
Yeah, Sarge, do you have like a definition for that?
I have to tell you, it's been real.
Nobody gives a shit. Stop crying like a
Venus,
whore.
he's given
Give
several
the
so
definition.
far.
Venus, they've been asking for like a definition.
This
for
guy's
2
crying
hours.
like a whore on the mic. Nobody cares.
I assume
Venus, they've been asking for a definition for 2 hours, right?
it
Or like
sounded
some criteria. But you
it
think
sounded
people
like
giving that?
he was it sounded like he was about to give the "I'm about to go" speech. So was that what's about to happen?
Yeah, he left. He left.
Oh, he's gone.
Welcome
That
back,
was
Rose.
anticlimactic. That was like right when you're about to like finish, and then
Involving
they just like
lots of
stop,
numbers.
and
Is
it
what
just kind of
complex
ruins the orgasm.
Something that involves a lot of
No,
numbers.
get that
That's
dick out my face.
But
Wait, I
you're,
have to pee.
what do you mean that you cannot infer an intelligent designer? Like,
I think the definition he was looking for is
I asked
complexity.
Theory.
No, I'm telling you what his definition of complex.
I was saying that he can't
Oh,
like there
you're
can't even be evidence for like an intelligent designer or like God. That's what I was saying. So like the whole discussion is just pointless. That's what I was just asking Jack if he brought that up yet, and Jack was like, "Nah, we were just like stuck on like him not being able to define complexity."
So
I mean, he couldn't define anything. He didn't know what specified meant. He didn't know what complexity meant. He didn't know what function meant.
It was really funny that he was outraged as well and you were using really charitable language when you told him flat out he doesn't know the material. It was really fucking obvious that he doesn't know the material. And he seemed to be outraged at that.
Yeah, it was just crazy.
Yeah, play hide the ball. Typical
So-
atheist two-step.
So I'm curious to know what you guys take intelligent design to mean. I'm just curious since
Could
this is all about-
could the definition of complexity just mean more than one part?
So the idea would be that
that is what it basically means. The more parts, the more complex.
Yeah, well, I
But,
just
like,
mean
is the sun complex? That's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to understand.
Well, I just guess like if you say it's something complex, is it foundationally made of more than I guess what you would call one thing? I guess.
Well, many connected parts.
So anything with 2 parts or more is complex?
Yeah.
That sounds retarded.
Why?
No, it wouldn't.
Well, it's a spectrum. It's not that they're all the same
Not very
complexity. It's
complex.
just that's like the first step.
Well,
Wait, I stack like 2 Lego pieces together, and that's like complex or something.
Yeah,
like a system could be complex and have like just a few parts to it, but I don't
Sure.
think it's inversion of it just being more than one part.
Jack.
Well, by part we mean it's going to be more than one. Sorry, more than one set. Well, more than like the singular part. So if it's like 2 hydrogen atoms isn't complex, but like a hydrogen and an oxygen would be complex. If that makes sense.
But like
Kappa. Do you think that I could find something complex that you would find simple?
Right. I was.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be relative. We're just talking.
Right,
We're
so
just
we're talking relative, right? But you're not saying it's relative, right? So let's
If you
just
want
make
to
sure
talk
that's
about
clear.
complexity, it's easier to think about it backwards. Like you look at the output first.
Sorry.
Easier.
Sorry, it's just sometimes I don't do my job quick enough, but I try to be fast.
I just wanted to say, like, Jack, if he's still there, like, or anyone else who wants to jump in, like, what do you think that, like, intelligent is doing there in intelligent design? Like, because presumably design is going to have the criteria of intelligence behind it already, right?
But you could be like a bad designer. I think the Christian's trying to say that, like, or the theist is trying to say that, like.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack.
Like, you can have like bad.
Thank you, Jack,
designers,
Yuri.
Right, but like, oh, I thought you said.
He
the
said
room.
before anyone else jumps in, "Hey, Jack, I have a question for you."
Oh, my bad. I thought he said the room. My bad.
Oh no, I said Jack or the room. I don't mind. Like,
I would just think that I would take intelligence to mean meaningful. I guess.
Nice. Tell Yuri to shut up, Kappa, and then take his answer. Okay.
That was the point.
Go ahead, Yuri.
No, I was just saying that, like, I think the Christian is trying to say, or the theist is trying to say that, like you could have, like, the reason why they want to use intelligent designer because they want to show that, like, their designer is, like, good or like supreme, right? And like you could have like bad designer, but like things like that the Bible talks about, like how pretty nature is and how like, you know, the universe looks, right? That has to be that has to be evidence for like someone who's like great, like in all those regards, right?
It's
So
simpler than
intelligence
that.
almost works like some great making property.
No, that's not what it is. The reason why we're positing an intelligent designer is because the atheist is going to say there is no intelligence with regards to the design of our fucking universe, right? So we're juxtaposing their fucking we're juxtaposing their hypothesis.
They called it intelligent design to
Come
make it sound
on, bro.
sciencey.
What the
No.
fuck? Come on, calm down.
I think intelligence just means meaningful. So it's like there's some intention behind it rather than it just being random.
It just means that there's a consciousness behind the
That's
action.
what most of us usually mean by design, Captain.
Well, yeah, design has a purpose typically, doesn't it?
No, it's true. It's a reaction. It's a reaction to the idea that there could be the design just naturally. I don't know who was saying that. The guy.
But we don't call them designs like that. Like when you say design, you're implying that there's a mind behind it. And when you don't, so if you say it's naturally designed, people would say, oh, well, there's some mind that designed it that was not God, but natural. Like that's what we're talking about. What you just don't want to say, you don't want to say it was intelligently created because you want to say design.
Evolution is could be interpreted as that there's a natural design process.
Why would it be designed?
Or why would you use the word design?